These are the 4 bag designs from the Gemini die collection. So firstly I'm going to show you the different styles of the base. So with this particular style we have the darts. So you have darts on the front and darts on the back. And that's the sort of design you'll find that you'll get. And the lining is exactly the same as the outer fabric too. Then with this design there's no darts or there's no pleating whatsoever. It's just a straight round design. It's probably the simplest of all of them. And this is how that looks, a straight lovely round design. Then moving on to the last one, this is the one that has the box corners, and this is the one that gives you a little bit more structure, a little bit more of a bigger bottom, a flatter bottom, and that's what it looks like when it's created. So it gives you that depth going across the bottom of the bag, and you can see the seams down the side and down the bottom. So this is the scallop bag. So the actual flap itself on this bag has the scallops, but the base is exactly the same as we looked at before with the darts. So that's the one we looked at, and the scallop bag is identical except the flap is a different size and a different shape. So this is a reminder that this is the straight bottom one with no darts or pleats or boxes, and this is the box pleat corner. They've given you again 4 beautiful different styles. Now think about the wadding that you're going to put inside your bag, because this may make a difference. So this is the foam, so it's either the sew-in foam or the fusible foam, and it gives the bag a little bit more rigidity but still remaining lovely and soft, but it has structure. That's the foam. If you use the wadding, you can see how beautifully soft that is, and of course your bag will also be beautifully soft. Perhaps that's the sort of thing that you want to do. The third one is the interfacing. So this is an iron-on interfacing. You can get sew-in as well, a medium weight, and I'm putting 2 layers on each piece. So 2 layers on the lining, 2 layers on the outer, and that's made a nice rigid type of bag. And again, that might be just what you need. So this is the fabric I'm going to use. I've put my interlining on the back. This is the sew-in one, and I've used 2 layers. I'm folding that in half. I'm making sure those folds go right into the middle of both pieces, and I'm laying my piece, my die down to now go through the machine. So it's the acrylic plate, the metal plate, the opaque and the acrylic all the way through the machine. And just remove, always use tape, it keeps everything in place, and you can see how beautifully that's cut, and that's the outside pieces now done. And of course they're 100% accurate. And this is where if you use a directional fabric, you can think about where that direction is going to go and how that fabric's going to look when it's cut. So this is the lining, and again I've put 2 layers of the interfacing on my lining. Now make sure that those folds go straight into the middle on all of those pieces. That makes sure your bag is cut beautifully and accurately. Again, taping down, popping through the Gemini or any of the machines that you may have. Discard with your waste, take your die away, and you've cut your lining absolutely perfectly. Beautifully, beautifully cut. Don't worry about those creases right down the middle. Actually, they come in really handy when you want to place the flap inside the bag. I'll show you that later. So the last thing you need to do is to actually cut the flap of the bag. So again, I've cut 2 pieces, one from the lining, one from the outer. And with the outer, I'm going to line it up along the middle of that pattern. You can see there, right along the middle, and that's where the centre of my flap's going to go. So again, make sure those folds are really well creased down and in the middle, and then pop your die on the folds. Again, tape down. I'm just using an inaffordable masking tape, and again there we are, there's the 2 pieces cut absolutely perfectly. So they're ready for stitching. So now you can see I'm going to stitch all the way around the 3 sides. So I'm leaving that top one open. So I've got the lining fabric and the main fabric, and all I'm going to do is stitch all the way around about 1/4 inch. Now this process is the same for any of the bags. So this is when you're going to stitch the outside of your flaps together whether it's the scallop, whether it's the round, whether it's this sort of longer, rounder shape. This is what you're going to do with any of the styles. This is your first step in your stitching. So about 1/4 inch, I'm not measuring. You may want to go a little bit bigger than that. That's entirely up to you. It will alter the size of your bag, of course, if you go a little bit bigger. So all the way around, right to the end, a nice locking stitch, and we're done. Now just snip all your corners off if you've got corners, or clip into your curves if you've got curves. And certainly you'll have to do that with the scalloped edge flap. So pop something in there. I'm using the blunt end of my scissor tips there just to push that through, and that's now done. And if you want to stitch along the top, you can. It just puts the lining and the main piece together. So all we're going to do now is to put our main pieces of the bag together. So our lining, again with the interfacing, we're going to do right sides together. And you'll see how beautifully accurately this has been cut using the dies. Gives you that 100% accuracy, which you'd never get with hand cutting, or at least I couldn't. So just clipping those together just to hold everything in place. And I'm going to stitch down the 2 sides, so this first one, and obviously the one on the opposite side. And on the bottom, you're going to stitch about 1.5 inches, leave a gap, and 1.5 inches on the other end. That gap is really important for any of the bags. So even on this one here, those linings would have been stitched together and a little gap left in the bottom of the lining ready for turning. So again, about 1/4 inch seam allowance, but try to be consistent throughout. Keeps everything nice and neat and easy for you. And then just do your seams, as I said, about 1.5 inches there, leave a gap. Make sure you do your locking stitches as well, because all of these stitches come under pressure when you turn the bag inside out. So that is the lining done. Super neat. And you've got your box corners ready to go. So bring those seams together and nest them. Now that when you nest, all you're doing is pushing those seams one way, then the other way, and they nest beautifully together. And it's a good little technique to use whenever you're nesting seams. It's done a lot in quilting, but there's no reason why you can't use it in any other part of your sewing life. So just make sure that bottom seam is going all the same way, so it's got to be pushed over to one particular side, and then it'll lie nice and neat. So now we're going to do the main part of the bag. It's exactly the same, except we're going to do the 2 long sides and we're going to go straight along the bottom. So the first thing we're going to do is line them up, right sides together, about 1/4 inch, all the way down that side, all the way down the bottom, don't forget that locking stitch, and all the way up the other side. How easy is that? Bring those seams together, do that little box corner again, make sure you're nesting those seams, and that's your main bag done. So turn your lining so the right side is out, and you're putting lining to the right side of your main bag. And this is where you want to nest your flap in there, and your actual fold lines where you cut in the machine comes really handy for that. So always remember right sides to right sides. Now I'm putting some hardware in here. There's another video that shows you perhaps in more detail. So again, I'm just popping that in at the sides where the 2 seams come together. So that's the lining seam there, the main bag seam there at the sides. I'm just clipping that to hold it in place and popping the other one in the other side. It's such a simple way, and this could be done for all of your bags. So now all I'm doing is stitching through all the layers. Now this is a little bit more than 1/4 inch. I would say it's not quite 1/2 inch. Because you're stitching through so many layers, and it would be good to make sure you've caught them all, and it gives it a little bit more strength when you do just a wee bit over 1/4 inch. So as I'm going round, I'm catching all that hardware in there and the flap as well. Turning it right side out, pulling it all through, and it'll crease, there's no doubt about it, but we can get a really good steam iron on that later and get all those creases out. So you can see I'm just popping my hand in there, and at some point you'll stitch that opening together that's in your lining. But you don't need to worry about it at this stage. So push all that lining in, get it lovely and straight. Get the hardware nice and standing proud there outside the bag. Bring your flap over, and that's in essence, that's almost your bag made. So there we are, I'm just showing you. Just give it a really good steam iron, get right into the nooks and crannies, and give it a good press. It makes a huge difference to your finished product. So now all I've done is made a strap. Now everything that I've made is 4 inches wide. This particular strap is 54 inches long with the ends just folded in for neatness, and the little hardware straps are 4x4, and everything is made so it fits our hardware, which is 1 inch wide. So just threading that through, making it nice and neat, and I'm using the adjustable clasp because then it means I can personalise. Bringing the end through, and all I'm going to do now is just stitch that, and then that's done. It's a really easy way of making your bag and finishing your bag off. I haven't got a popper on there, but we can do that later. So that's the bag finished. Needs a good press, needs a bit of hardware, perhaps a ribbon or two. So with the other designs, the bag bottoms are slightly different where you've got the darts. Now again, you're just doing right sides together, you're stitching all those darts. So 4 for the front and back of the main bag, and 4 for the front and the back of the lining. So you just repeat that. So that could be the front. We've just done the back. You pop those two together, and then you're just going to stitch all the way around, just as you did before. So that's the different styles. This one, no darts at all, very super easy. This one with the 2 little darts back and front and either side with a scalloped flap there. The other style being the box corners that we've just put together on the video, and that makes a little bit of a more flatter bottom. It's just remembering that that particular bag has a different flap to that bag, but the darts are the same. So you've got 3 different styles of bottom, and this is the finished bag.